All right, welcome everybody. This is our first live stream of the Unbecoming Karen live stream series. Thank you so much for being here. We are excited to unpack and heal around internalized white supremacy, what that means for us, how it shows up for us, how we heal through it, what we learn from it, and how we create a world that exists without it so that we're showing up as our authentic selves without this programming that separates and divides us and instead brings us together. How can we function from our hearts, from our roots, from really seeing each other and honoring each other in our nobility, to quote one of our teachers. So just want to take a moment and honor our teachers. We met in Kairos Healers Academy. Janet Raftis and Ina Lucas were our teachers. They are white women healers as well, who held this space for us and help us understand and see in action how women who were brought up in the white life of America could courageously and openly and heart-centeredly bring forth their healing in a way that is pretty, I'd say pretty visual. They share it with the world. They're very open about their healing journey, and they don't hide from the shadow. They don't hide from the darkness. They don't hide from the yucky part. They grab hands with their sisters and they walk into it bravely and let healing take place, releasing the old stories, releasing the old patterns, and trusting their guides and each other to walk into a healed world. So that's what we're doing. We are learning from them. And then also one of our mentors in Kairos was Kertrice Goddard, who is a Black woman who courageously holds space for white women who are having these conversations because we don't know what we don't know. And she brought in this sense of nobility that we all have. And her journey is tuning people back into that so that we see each other in our wholeness, in our glory, in our magnificence, and that it's safe to be messy and not always get it right and make mistakes as long as we're here showing up and learning, and doing the best to show up with an open heart. So with that, I will open the conversation. If anybody else wants to say anything as we're dropping in and getting people acclimated to the space here.
I think that was a great intro, Clarissa. I think you said it all beautifully. So, yeah.
And I think the only thing I want to add is just like the power of speaking into the world, something that has been silent for so long, right? Like I think it's really potent as white folks for us to start talking about like these white things and for us to really start taking responsibility for what is ours to unpack, what is ours to heal, what is ours to dissolve and all of the things when we think of like within spirituality, all of the different modalities of healing, right? Where it's like, how do we apply that to these systems of harm? How do we apply that to, power and privilege and whatnot? So I feel really excited to be like merging these like two worlds for myself, at least, of like this kind of like activist self and the like spiritual self. I feel like there's a lot of like magic that's going to come from the alchemy of those two things joining as one.
Would we like to do just a quick little drop in to get everybody here and present and in our bodies? Oh, good.
Do you feel moved to lead that?
I certainly could.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. All right. So taking a deep breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. If it feels safe to you, I invite you to close your eyes or do a soft gaze at the floor. And just taking a moment and wiggling your body a little. So rolling your shoulders, your neck. Another couple of deep breaths, just bringing yourself into this space. Nowhere else to be right now. Nothing else to do. Calling back all the fragments of yourself that are out there thinking about the grocery list or picking up kids or what you're going to do for work or whatever else might show up. Just calling back yourself in a full presence in your body, feeling your feet on the floor, your butt in the chair, noticing the boundaries of your skin and the way the air feels as it moves by it. Maybe putting one hand on your heart and one hand on your belly if that feels safe for you, if that feels good. Just letting yourself breathe into that heart space. Maybe asking your heart what you came here for today. Setting the intention that you receive some of that during the call. Feeling the earth underneath your feet, holding you, gravity continuing to do its job and anchor you into this earth, onto this earth, never failing, always here for you. And at any point during this call, if you feel triggered, you feel activated or worried, we just invite you to come back to this place of connection to the earth, maybe envisioning your feet as roots reaching down into the earth, connecting with the earth and being held by her, or coming back to this space of connection to your heart and bringing in an element of curiosity. It's very normal for judgment to show up, to question in a way that is from judgment or fear or divisiveness. These are the old patterns. And it's okay when those things happen because we can't heal what we don't see. So just inviting us to be okay, being in the discomfort, being in the unknown, and having this be a space where all is welcome. And anytime we are finding ourselves in that place of disconnection, just coming back to heart, coming back to the love, coming back to our bodies. Taking one more deep breath in and releasing it with a sigh. As you're ready, I welcome you to come back into the space. Let your eyes drift back open. You're shaking your body a little bit, noticing the room around you. Just reorienting your body to this space and time. And let's jump in.
Thanks, Clarissa. I want a presence too, like as we're jumping in, like why it's so important for us to do this kind of like drop in as we begin to engage in these conversations, right? Like, when we think of like systems of power and control, when we think of white supremacy, right? Like some of these systems really function on us not being embodied, right? Like being in the mind, being concerned with everything else and not ever being fully present. And so there's a really like radical act in like choosing to be presence, to be in presence right now. I also want to name that like one of the tools that upholds like white supremacy is this feeling of urgency, right? Like we don't have time for this. We can't slow down, right? And so like if that was rising, like that's totally okay, right? And that's just part of the programming and we can say thank you, but like we do have time. We have time to drop in. We have time to get grounded, right? So I just wanted to presence that, right? That these like choosing to do this is part of the work, right? Is part of undoing like white supremacist programming that tells us there's no time, right? So anyway.
I totally appreciate that you brought that in because when during that drop in, like I could feel my throat. And I was thinking, I was noticing how after you sort of did the intro, Clarissa, and I was just like, oh, thanks. That was great. I don't have anything to add. And then, Kristen, you added this really beautiful thing, right? And then when we were doing the drop in, I could feel my throat constricting. And I was like, here it is. Here it is. I'm afraid to speak. I mean, we've been having such great conversations and stuff for a while now, but now that it's like, quote, showtime, right? I can feel that programming of like, mm-mm. And just the reality and the truth of that silencing, right?
Mhm.
Of being silent, remaining silent. And I was, as we were dropping in too, I was just, it was almost like my life was passing before me, and like my history in my life of racial programming. And, I'm 62. I was born in 1962, which is interesting. I never noticed that before. But I was born in 1962, right? And so a lot was happening in the 60s relative to race in this country, right? Like, yes, I was an infant and a little one. But then in the 70s, I grew up just outside Boston, and busing happened, like forced desegregation of schools, public schools in Boston. And I do have vague memory of watching the news and seeing like all these white faces throwing stuff at school buses full of black faces, children driving by, and these white grown-ups like screaming and throwing stuff at the buses. And so I was just, all of that was just washing through me as we were in that drop in, and just really acknowledging like my own journey this past couple of years with this process, and how clueless I felt about it. Like I would have been one of those liberal white spiritual women who was like, I'm not racist, I'm not racist. But um, really getting a firsthand experience of like, it lives in me, it lives in my body. My body responds in certain ways through anxiety, through fear, that aren't my fault, that were programmed in. And if I can deny them, then I remain part of the problem and the complicity through the silence and all of that. So I'm just so grateful for my own education in all of this over these past, well, a long time, but especially with Kertrice and with Janet Nina, and then now continuing the work with you ladies. Like, it just has really, I've learned so much about like, wow. Yes, even though I proclaim I'm not racist, um, the white supremacist programming lives deeply in here. And learning last year through our conversations with Kertrice in her class, like at first I just felt so ashamed. Like, what a horrible person I am that I thought that. But then to be held in a space of like, no, thank you for sharing that. Like, I remember hearing um, women of color in the group in like reflecting to me that they felt safer with me when I admitted to some of what was coming up for me, rather than trying to pretend it wasn't there. And I was like, really? And it's because they were like, well, it's there, and you admitting it and speaking it out loud makes me trust you more. So anyway, that it was just all, it has been such a huge education for me and healing, and I am just so honored and excited and all the things that we're doing this and we're having these conversations. And like, just because of my own experience, some of the pukey things I've felt and shared about what I'm feeling, like no matter what comes up for somebody during any of these conversations and what they share, like, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. You're not a bad person. It's programming. We all carry it. So huge, really powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like you said so many things that are really important and fundamental to this. One is that shame is a natural, normal part of this process. We usually, we often carry it and we don't know that we do. And so just by having these conversations, something might come up and you're like, oh, I never realized that I actually do that. Or I had a little bit of that, but I couldn't identify it. So just being open to the journey and honoring that there's going to be a whole range of emotions that come up. And our hope is to cultivate a space where it is, it's okay to explore all of that and just show up how we are. For me, that was also one of my most potent experiences in Kairos was being able to not be perfect and put together and honor that there is some of this that lives in my body and in my programming that I had no idea was there and was functioning. I really appreciate that. And Kristen, I was wondering if, I don't know why, but it feels like you'd be a really good a good person to speak to this. You could share some of the places where internalized white supremacy shows up. Do things come to mind? You just have such an extensive background in that.
Yeah, I mean, I was honestly thinking of like pulling up a list I have, but I don't want to like dig in there. But like, I want to name that like perfectionism, not being able to make mistakes is an integral part of like white supremacist programming, right? And it harms all of us, right? Like that feeling that, like just think of like any time, right? Like how much that fear of making mistakes stops us in our tracks, right? How like feeling like it isn't safe to be messy, right? Like stops us from experimenting, stops us from playing in creativity, right? Like how many, and like this is, you know, whatever, but like how many white people have I met who won't identify with the word artist because they have this idea that an artist has to be this like perfect, ready to like put on the thing, right? Like it's not about the creative process, it's about like the product at the end, the final result, right? Which is another big like part of like white supremacist culture, right? Is this idea of like progress is always like bigger and better, right? And that like it doesn't like all that matters is the outcome, right? And so that what that does to a lot of us, right, is that like we're always feeling like we're not enough. We're always feeling like we're not successful enough. We're always looking for that next thing to prove that we've made it, to prove that we're successful, right? And so that outcome driven, right, like life, right, can just create a lot of lack of joy, right? Like lack of fun, lack of play, lack of doing anything other than for a specific purpose, which like to me is like takes all the fun out of life, takes like all of the breath and the spirit out of life, right? Um
Can I just pop
Also,
in for a quick? I
yeah,
just
please.
I just was noticing how often in that what you said the word lack,
Totally.
and that's what it is, right?
It's
Programming
a
that there's
lack.
lack,
Yes,
so it's competition, and
totally.
they're the ones that we have to fight against. Yeah.
Totally.
Sorry to interrupt.
I was going to say
No,
too.
please interrupt anytime.
Oh
I
yeah,
was going to say
that's
too that like
perfectionism. Sorry to
it feels
interrupt.
like we even got caught up in this for, I mean, we've been having these conversations for 9 months or something now, because we were planning on having a podcast. That was initially what came through. And then it led us down this whole rabbit hole of all the things you have to do for a podcast and how it has to be polished and edited and look a certain way. And we were like, that's not actually us and that's not what we're feeling coming through. And so we, through this whole process, it's been this medicine of just allowing us to show up as we are, morphing the idea of a podcast into a live stream conversation, trusting that we would be sufficient showing up in this moment, even if it is messy and we don't have the perfect backgrounds all the time and we don't always say the like perfect thing and it's not edited to reflect that. We do. And so that's part of our medicine and our choosing to be in this creation and this co-creation with spirit and with each other, where we get to just come and show up fully how we are.
Mm, yeah. Thank you for presencing that, right? Because like we all brought so much intention to how we do this, even though it feels like it's like off the cuff because we're just like chatting and like, but we brought so much intentionality and like so much like spiritual, like otherworldly support to this work, you know, like um that like yeah, it is an intentional act to like let ourselves be seen in the process, to let ourselves be seen in the mess, right? To let ourselves like both claim that seat of like mastery of leader and also the seat of the student, the seat of the constant learner, right? Because that's like the other like another big like pillar of white supremacy culture is this like either or binary thinking, right? There's good guys and there's bad guys. There's right things and there's wrong things, right? Like I'm sure that we can think of like infinite examples of this like black and white kind of good and bad binary culture that is like super integral to like white supremacy and so many of these other systems of power and control. But when we think of like Like when I think of rooting more into like like the spirituality that we've all talked about, right? Like that dualism, like kind of starts to fade, right? Like there isn't this like evil nighttime and this like glorious, like, you know, moral daytime, or this like evil winter and like good summer. You know what I mean? It's like, it just is like, it's winter and it's summer, right? Like, it's not like, you know, we're not putting these morals on it. And yet, right, like that is a really common thing that we do. And like in how we decide how to act, what to say, what to wear, right? Like I want to be a good person. That's a big part of whiteness, right? I got to be a good person. Here's how I am a good person, right? Like, let me act the role of good person. Yeah. Thoughts on that, I guess?
I've never done that before, so I wouldn't know.
Yeah, I'm too good a person. Well, I think about the binary, just the binary. I mean, when you look at what's happening politically now, too, like the government has even proclaimed that there's a gender binary, right? So it's now like almost law that there's a gender binary. Yeah. Um, One of the other things that comes up for me about what I've learned so much about, and I just want to acknowledge you, Kristen, too. Like I love Clarissa that you know, just really acknowledging your depth and breadth of experience and expertise with this and knowledge. Um, I'm just grateful for you and your knowledge. But the cancel culture
Mhm.
is a big part of it too, right? And it keeps us
Mhm.
all in fear. That how fear is like at the root of it. That, like you said, afraid to say the wrong thing, afraid not to be perfect, afraid not to dress the right way, afraid not to be in the in crowd, afraid, you know, all of that stuff. And that like cancel culture or um yeah, calling people out, right, is such a big part of that. It's like a weapon of it, right? Um, God, I mean, media.
Mhm.
It's what it's all about, right? Um, so yeah, so that's been really powerful too for us to like really learn how to do that. Like on the one hand, to witness what's happening and to know like where things are out of alignment and to be willing to speak to that while not calling anybody out or shaming anyone or making it a them versus us or a right versus wrong. It's just a um there's a way of doing it. And that's the balance. I think that's the line that we walk, right? Is being clear and speaking to it while not getting into judgment and any of that white supremacist stuff about it all.
Well, and a piece it feels like we need to learn as like white folks, or maybe just like as a culture too, right? Is like, what does it look like for you to say, hey, Kristen, I had a problem with what you said, without me spiraling into I'm bad, I'm wrong, I'm stupid, right? Like, what does it look like for me to be held accountable without then spending like the next 24 hours being like, God, I'm such an idiot. You know what I mean? Like, because like I've totally done that before where I'm like, I can't believe I would say that. I don't really feel that way, you know, whatever it is, right? And so there's this also this piece of us learning how to have grace with each other, right? How to not like jump down each other's throats when we say the wrong thing, and sit with that trigger. And then later come up and be like, hey, when you said blah blah, it really like I didn't like it, or whatever, right? Where it's like it's totally changing how we interact with each other, or it has the potential to, right? Like, yeah. The other thing I was thinking too is like, because you were talking about, right, like how like binaries are being like legalized, right? And this isn't the first time that's happening, right? Like blackness was created by law to differentiate people of African descent from people of European descent, right? Like that was a legal language thing that happened within the United States, right? Like it wasn't just like, oh, now there's black and white people. It's like, no, that was like a cultural construct to like create hierarchy, right? And so like like a question like drops in is like, what's threatening about unity, right? Like what's threatening about non-binary living? What's threatening about, right, like us seeing the humanity in each other, right? Like, because some system is threatened by that, because it spends a lot of time keeping us divided and keeping us separate and making sure that we think I'm better than them, they deserve that or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that keeps coming through as I'm listening to you both speak is this tenet of otherness. How it is one of the most powerful tools of patriarchy culture, of colonialism, of misogyny, of our own internalized system that has us need to show up perfectly and have the right answer or the right outfit or the right hairstyle or the right words, because we are so afraid of not being included. And it also extends to this um, separation of groups of people. And so it is again that like either or. Um, and so just to jump into a little personal story of my own healing in the last couple of years has been realizing that when I would be around a person of color, there was something inside of me that immediately sparked shame. And it wasn't like, some people have had the experience of, um, I'm like better than or something. For me, it was like, I owe them because of who I am in this body and what people in bodies like this have done to people in bodies like that. I owe them. And there's nothing I can do to make that right. Like, there's been so much harm that there is nothing I can do to heal that. And what I found was just beginning to acknowledge it and recognize it. I had always felt it, and I'd never been able to put words to it until I started to do this work. And then being able to put words to it gave me an opportunity to start to heal what was there, own what is my responsibility, and then begin to change the energetic feeling that I have and therefore the behavior when I'm around anyone, let alone people of color. And so now it's like, I feel like I'm walking through the grocery store and I still see this difference. And I'm not sure if that is an important part of the healing to end up being colorblind eventually, or if it's just to be in recognition of the magnificence of diversity of nature, right? But I now get this beautiful experience time after time after time of choosing to see that person and see the light within them. And I can't even count the number of times that I walk away from that interaction with a full heart, knowing that this person has been seen and I have been seen. And there is this like quiet, subtle honoring of something different than what we bring. And it feels like that's beginning to transmute the, 4 decades of me being in this. I feel different. I feel separate. I don't know why. I just know that I feel like, ugh, like, why am I like this? And like, imagine how many people of different skin colors I've encountered in my life. Most of my life I've been in the minority, sorry, in my childhood, I was largely in the minority. And I always felt this like, I owe you. And that perpetuates um, this culture and this story of I owe you, rather than we showed up at this time to heal this and come together and move through the darker parts. And so, even honoring that those triggers that show up, we honor them here as teachers because, again, we can't heal what we can't see. And so, I'm so grateful for that experience to be like, I was so awkward and weird. And now I just like I honor that that has existed and transpired and I transmute it into love and gratitude. And like there's a lot of gratefulness for people of color being patient with people like me who just again didn't know what I didn't know, but here I am on this journey to figure it out and I'm leaning in.
Thank you for sharing that. I don't think you're alone in that. Like when you were speaking that, I was like, oh, I can resonate with that feeling of like both like what I'll call like kind of like the dirty part of it, right? And the like clean part of it, right? Where there's like, what is my responsibility? What is like mine to step into, right? And that kind of like that grappling with it, but how you had to really like face it, sit with it, be with it for it to start growing into the more like accountability, beautiful, like soul aligned part and not the like, because I totally feel that like I owe them, or like I think of like um like the pity energy that can come up, and like all of this, which is like fine, whatever, like we get to feel how we feel, right? But it does change how we interact with people, right? Because like when someone comes at me with pity energy, I am not trying. I am not for it. You know what I mean? And so like, or like, and I don't know if any of y'all have experienced this before, but like have you ever had someone like respond to you and just feel how am I trying to say this? Where you can tell that they don't feel safe around you. Like something about your presence doesn't make them feel safe, right? And like it's not spoken, it's just subtle, right? It's spidey sense stuff, right? Like their body language changes. Like you're almost like, oh, should I back off a little bit? Like, um, and and that's something that like as white folks and as white women, we probably actually don't feel that much. That's probably like something that like folks of color or men are more familiar with, feeling that like that their presence creates unsafety, right? But I know that personally, like as someone who has enjoyed being in spaces organized like by Black folks, right? Like that, like I have to negotiate that sometimes, right? Like if it's a space like that's really by and for like folks of color, like does my presence as a multiracial but like white passing person, like is that safe, right, for everyone, right? And then like because that makes me think of before something you were saying, Babs, about like, ooh, it was specifically, I think maybe around like the silence and that connection of silence and safety, right? And how for so long, I think a lot of folks have kept themselves safe by being silent, right? And there's a lot of messaging right now that it's unsafe. I'm
Mhm.
going to say false messaging. I'm going to say false messaging that it's unsafe. But how much that is a tool, right? Like of control, just like the threat of violence is enough to um like keep us quiet, right? Like I think we've talked about this before, like all together, and like how just the threat enough is enough to um let the harm continue to happen, right? Because you don't want to be harmed too.
Yeah. And that whole piece, I relate so much too to what you shared, Clarissa. And it's for me, it's linked to a behavior that I adopted, maybe not consciously, but for safety's sake as a queer person, where I would always try to be really nice.
Mhm.
Like I overcompensate. I think I don't know if I intentionally did this or if who knows, right? But my perception was that people would hate me. So therefore I had to be so nice that they would like me. And so when I think about this from a in a racial context, like one of the things, and especially as white spiritual women, because a lot of my peers that I talk to that haven't done, like my age, that haven't done the kind of racial healing work, they haven't just it hasn't found them or they haven't found it. And that's where I hope they find their way to this conversation. Um, when I have shared with them what was a surprise to me as a spiritual white woman healer, as a healer who says that they create safe space for people, to hear from women of color that they don't feel safe with me by default because I'm white. I was like, I think in the past I might have reacted to that with like some judgment against them. Like, well, what, why? I'm one quote, one of the good ones, right? Like that's one of those beliefs that we have. But to hear in Kairos, the women of color just like, we're not going to come to those calls because we don't feel safe. That floored me. And I've really grown to like just accept that as reality. And of course, that's the case. So we do have a lot of catching up to do, I guess, or something, like where and I love the question that came up for me, Clarissa, when you were talking was like how to walk. It's a balance, right? Like in the same moment, if I'm in a space with a black person, there's a lot that goes on in the same moment. Like, yes, there are differences. to like be quote colorblind is bypassing, right? So yes, there are differences. Um, there's a whole lot of programming that we're navigating. Like, do they feel safe with me? How do they feel? And what I feel about them. And I'm trying to be nice to them. Am I overly nice to them to try to make them feel, all of that stuff. Um, so like, how do I, and it's, you lose your center, right? So in those moments, it's like, okay, I need to find my center, be in my core as a divine being embodied, right? Knowing that they are too, just like you shared, Clarissa, like they're like, so are they. And also acknowledging the history that um, is real, because I think this is what a lot of spiritual people don't do, right? And we heard this in some of the conversations where it's like, yeah, but we can all just love each other. We're all just one. It's like, yes, and there's a history that's real and that's true and that didn't end 100 years ago. Um, so it's like holding, it's like stretching ourselves enough to hold all of that and remain regulated, remain present, so that we can be present for that moment, however it might unfold. And then different possibilities exist, right? So important and powerful and confusing and all
It's
the things.
it's so interesting too, Babs, because like, so it makes me think when you were talking about like the piece of like, oh, but like, let's just like all just like be love and light and like we're unity and we're one, right? Like it's so interesting when we like take that conversation like out of talking about racism and then maybe we place it around sexism, right? And it's like, oh, so do we feel like that about all of the men who have harm, right? Where it's just like, oh, just love them, like who care? You know what I mean? And like, yeah, I don't like, stand by hate. I don't want that. But you know what I mean? Where it's like, it's so interesting when you kind of like flip it a little bit, where
Mhm.
like folks have a little bit of, oh, well, like, no, I don't think that they should be forgiven 100% for everything they did. They need to take responsibility for this or that or this or that. And it's like, just like us white folks. Like, so
Yes.
it's just interesting sometimes, like, because I've had that a lot in certain, like, more like, yeah, like feminist spaces, right? Where it's like really easy to have this like critical lens of patriarchy, but then like that all falls apart when looking at racism, right?
Yeah.
It's just like an interesting thing that like happens where it's like,
Hmm.
or and similarly like within like spaces that I've been in that have like a really strong like class focus, right? Where it's like we can like talk about all the stuff when it comes to like, the workers and the owners, but like when we bring in that racial context, it's like woo woo woo, can't touch it. So I'm really grateful to be here with all of you talking about this, because frankly, like it's I was going to say like the white community is starved for these conversations. That's how the language was coming through. So like, um,
Yeah.
yeah.
We're capable of so much more,
Hmm.
you know, and yeah.
And for so long, we have been so controlled by um, by this fear-based culture around these conversations
Hmm.
that it just feels like it's time.
Yeah.
And maybe more so now than ever, as there is more fear rising up and more separation and divisiveness, that those of us who have been doing this work on whatever level are willing to speak up and
Yeah.
share and start to provide spaces for these conversations. Because, I mean, I'd be a different person if I didn't have those conversations inside of Kairos and have that container held for me.
Yeah.
And I would probably still be very awkward at, grocery store parking lots, passing people, being like, I owe you, but I don't know why, but hi. And,
Yeah.
and I think it was Kristen, you were referencing this earlier, how that energy is transmitted, even if the words aren't. Even if there's a smile, in some context, I learned about how there's this pattern in white culture to, like, you don't smile with your eyes, or maybe you do, but then you turn away from. So to set it up correctly, it's a white person and a person of color who are interacting with one another, and white person is very polite and kind and smiles and then turns away, and then the person of color sees like that smile leave their face, like it was performative. Like I'm supposed to smile because I'm a nice person.
Right.
but it didn't actually,
Mm.
like, it doesn't touch your heart is what's
Mm.
coming through. And so I think it's really lovely that we are having this space for these open conversations to acknowledge when it doesn't touch our heart. And why is that? And to unpack that. And I love that you were noticing and noting the it's almost like a self-righteousness of it as well. That it's like, well, I've done my work. I've done my
Yeah.
healing. I'm not
Right.
racist. I'm not. And what is so critical about this and why I think we all feel drawn to this conversation, one of the reasons, is that we are here for the nervous system regulation work. So there might be a lot of this that is not conscious behavior, but it lives inside our DNA. It lives inside our nervous system and it gets activated and triggered on a regular basis. And then that impacts how we show up in the world and how we move through the world and how we feel about the world. And so, having this opportunity to tend to the nervous system as we're speaking about these topics that have conventionally been very triggering and taboo is giving us all an opportunity to bring them to the surface and receive some tender, loving care and the opportunity to be transmuted into something different.
Yeah. Well said. Mm.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, especially as healers, we know, like, if we don't look at it, like, it can't be healed. I mean, it's like,
Right.
if we don't acknowledge that it exists and like sit with it, like, it's gonna keep showing up in ways that are not helpful.
Yeah, for anybody.
For
That's one of the
anyone.
things that was really important for, sadly, I'm going to say this sadly. And but I think this, perhaps it's human nature, maybe it's white supremacist culture or programming as a white person. But once I really got in my bones and in my body that, like, white supremacy hurts everyone. It doesn't just hurt black people, people of color. It hurts white people just as much. So somehow, sadly, that gave me the motivation to want to heal it. And though, as I've been healing it, what I'm finding, and that's part of the individualism, is part of the white supremacist programming too, right? Keeping us all, especially white spiritual women, right? Focused on your own healing, be in your own little box, be isolated, work on your own healing forever. Um, but once I was able to start really tapping into this and really, like, feeling all of this in my body, it flipped pretty quickly at some point into, like, wait a minute, is lot like the whole collective liberation, right? If there's anybody that's experiencing oppression, then we're all oppressed. So we are all in this together.
Mhm.
So that's been really profound for me too, to really get that. One of the other things too, I was thinking as you were talking, Clarissa, was I think part of the reason that we white people haven't done the healing is because we benefit from the system as well as being harmed by it. We're not aware of the harm of it, but maybe we don't allow ourselves to be aware of the benefit of it, but we are benefited by it. And I remember a few years back now, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I had read something, and this was when Deb Haaland, just before she became the Secretary of the Interior, right, overseeing the national parks and everything, that there was a movement by the indigenous tribes in the U.S. to reclaim ownership of the national parks,
Mhm.
those national
The
parks
land back.
that had been their, like, sacred lands, right? And I remember
Mhm.
reading that, and my first thought programming was, no, like, but they belong to, like, good Lord, like, they belong to us, to the country. But very quickly I was able to go into, but it also, of course, it makes sense. It was stolen from them. So it's time we give it back to them, right? And so I mentioned this to a friend of mine, spiritual white woman, beloved best friend, and I mentioned something to her about it, and I was like, "Yeah, I read about this. It's so awesome. I'm psyched that they're talking about that." And she just looked at me and she said, "I don't know if I want that because, well, they'll just probably put casinos up on in the mall." And she's a amazing
Yep.
healer, beautiful person, right? That's the programming. And So we have to be willing to let go of what we've received from this as white people, um, in order for us for the collective liberation to occur. So yeah.
Mm, so much in that, Babs.
Right.
Mm. Yeah, I wanna say, like, firstly, like, around the, like, we're not free until we're all free piece, right? Like, I feel like that when that message starts to, like, get out there more is, like, when we'll actually start having, like, more mass movements. Because, like, I think it was, like, when I graduated college, one of my supervisors had a quote in her email signature that was like, it's an indigenous proverb from Australia. That's like, if you've come here to help me, then you're wasting your time. But if you've come here because your liberation is bound up in my own, then let us work together. And like that quote has guided like my own like life and my own journey like since then pretty much. And like and it feels like something that like isn't the story that's being told by the media, right? Like, but when I have gone to like Black Lives Matter protests, or when it was the Occupy Wall Street stuff, or all of these different waves of movement, right? Like the organizers know that, right? Like they know that they are fighting for everyone's freedom, right? Even that when they say Black Lives Matter, but they mean all lives matter, because when Black lives matter, all lives will matter, right? Like they say like trans lives matter because they know when we start caring about trans people, then we care about everyone. You know what I mean? And so like it's part of this interesting kind of like um I don't know, like the propaganda to get people not to like the movement, right? Is to make them think, oh, they're only fighting for Black people. And it's like, no, like they know we all are trying to get free. You know what I mean? So, I mean, not that like, like every person of color is like celebrating white people like trying to get free, right? Because they're like, you're already free. What are you talking about? Which is why we as white people have to be like, we're in cages too. They're just made of glass and pretty stuff. Like,
Yeah,
like
that's right.
yeah. Yeah. And the land back thing I think is really interesting too, like the different perceptions on that. And like something that was coming through with what all of us were saying is like the subtle language change from like I'm racist, right? And like claiming this identity, making it a part of me, instead of being like, okay, so I was raised in a racist society and I hold racial bias. I have racial bias. I have prejudice, right? Like it feels a little bit different than like all of us being like, yeah, we're racist. Like you I know I know we all want to like admit that, right? But there does seem like there's like a subtle language thing or in like some relational thing to it, right? And really this is anchoring into like my work around like preventing like violence, right? Where it's like what happens when we talk about perpetrators, right? Like we just have a bunch of bad guys and a bunch of victims, right? Same thing. If we talk about just like a bunch of racists, right? Like then we have like the bad guys, and then like all the people the bad guys are hurting, or all the people the bad guys hate. And it's still kind of part of that same like us versus them, like right or wrong, good or bad, right? Like,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm feeling like there are these various places along our healing journeys, like touch points, where we start to like first we recognize that, oh, I have some of this programming in myself, not because I am inherently a bad person, but because this is the very air that I breathe. And then from that place of just recognizing I was a white person brought up in a culture of whiteness and racism where I am taught that there is a difference and I need to behave XYZ and show up as this way and make sure that I am XYZ. And then we can move into, well, what do I want to be? Like, where is that anchored? What else is there that is like, what's at the root of that? And there is this beautiful thing that I feel is even beyond what you're both saying and pointing to with the my liberation is tied up in yours. Um, that is still a like I'm doing it because I want to win. And so what if there is this point beyond that as we continue on our journey and it's like, all of the points are valid and important and necessary. And ultimately, it is this place where we are all liberated and free,
Mm.
not because we wanted to do it for ourselves and our people, but because we are all members of the same human race. And on this planet, it extends to the planet as well, right?
Mhm.
So,
Can I presence a card that I like randomly brought with me and didn't know why?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is from the Mary Magdalene Oracle deck, and it just says the soul, I am free. I have,
Uh-huh.
what does it say? I have not bound anything. So there feels like this also like interesting piece of like on a like higher esoteric level too, of like, and also we're all still free. You know, like that piece of like, and
Mhm.
amidst all of the trappings and the humans, like our soul is still free. We had the free will. We chose to be here. We chose to be in these bodies. We chose to be here now, right? Like that like juxtaposition of like, yeah, we're bound. And also like we're unbound.
Right. Yeah. It is the
Mm.
and of it, like I was saying earlier, right? Like it's holding all of it and knowing like how and when to apply it. Because again, if you move too quickly to, oh, we're from a soul perspective, right? If we're all divine beings having a human experience, then we can easily be in the divine piece of it. Like, well, what we see happening in the world now, it can be like, well, this was the plan. Apparently, we came here for this. We knew it was going to happen. We specifically came as we are for this. Yes. And, it's like you have to be super careful with that, right? Like when you start thinking about Gaza and what's going on there, like, yes, from perhaps a step way back and look at the big spiritual picture of, you know, collective soul evolution in the galaxy, just that. Um, and at the same time, as an embodied soul, I also get the human element of it, which is that, like, nobody in a human body can look at that, hopefully, and not be taken down by it, yeah, so it's holding all of it and knowing how and when to apply it and, not to bypass. When am I using some of it to bypass the feelings that might be there? Or when am I getting too caught up in the human part of it and forgetting the divine part of it? Because you need that too. You need the balance, right? Otherwise, you get you're not as effective or something at being part of the healing conversation of it. I don't know. Yeah, it's a thing.
yeah. Well, here's to this divine, human, messy
Yeah.
experiment that we're
Yeah,
all on. I
totally.
want to be mindful of the time and bring in
Yeah.
that part of our intention here was to do some healing work together.
Yeah.
And so, to wrap up each of these calls, we would love to just do a little healing, whatever comes through for each of us, in service to ourselves and service to each other, as an offering to the collective that we are
Mhm.
here to be a part of liberating. And so, do either of you have anything else you want to say before we drop into that?
I guess I just want to presence like how like excited I feel about pairing the healing with the conversations. Um just because like talking about white supremacy, talking about racism, talking about these like inherited systems of power and control, it's tangible, it's heavy, it has like a frequency to it. And so
Mhm.
being able to like call in like energy healing, frequency healing, sound medicine, like all of this like otherworldly magic to help hold some of that bigness just feels um like really profound and perfect for right now. So yeah, I love that
Yeah.
we're doing this.
Yeah, really necessary. Yeah.
Yeah, and what was coming through for me as you were saying that is that sometimes there's only so much that words can do. So we'll spend a lot of this time together with words, sharing what's coming through, and a lot of it will be channeled. Um, but there's a lot that is limited by these sounds we put together in words that form meaning, and then how that is also interpreted by the person receiving it. And so I find with energy, lots of times it transcends the capacity that words have. And so I love that we are able to bring in this element as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm. Does anyone feel moved or called to start us off? I'm happy to if no one does.
I don't really.
Okay. Then I'll start us off then.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to invite all of us to just start coming back into body. We have said a lot. We've gone a lot of places. We've opened a lot of doors or conversations. And so I'm just going to invite you to just start settling back into your body, maybe moving your body, stretching your body, and just maybe taking some deep breaths here. And as you settle in, I'm just going to invite in the holy fire Reiki energy to just start permeating your physical environment, maybe clearing out anything that's not yours, anything that doesn't need to be in this space with you. And with your permission, this energy, this holy fire, sacred love, Reiki energy can also start to enter into your body. With your permission, moving in to your body and going to all of the places that it is most needed, trusting this wise energy to conduct itself in the ways that serves your highest good and the highest good of all. And as you breathe and just allow this energy to work with you, work on you, work through you, I'll invite you, if it feels good, to just send some roots down into the earth, allowing these roots to grow out of the base of your spine, your hips, your knees, your feet, allowing these roots to grow as thick and wide as feels good, and to grow as deep as is needed. Just taking a few breaths here to just really feel that connection that you have to this earth that has housed humans for thousands and thousands of years. Maybe breathing in some of that earth energy, some of that life force, some of that prana, and just letting yourself release into the earth anything that is up to be released, anything that's not yours, anything that you don't want to carry, any beliefs, any programming, anything at all. Trusting that Mama Gaia loves to turn shit into new life. And so we can give it all to her. Mm. Mm. That's feeling complete on my end. I can, of course, keep going, but I want to open up space for y'all too.
Yeah. And so as we are allowing that beautiful Reiki energy to move through our bodies and releasing to Gaia that which is no longer serving us. Just allowing the frequency of this space that we've stepped into together here today, and the conversation we've had, and the intention that we three bring to this conversation, but also you who have come here to be part of the conversation, the intentions in your heart that you bring to this conversation, just really feeling into that now, allowing yourself to connect into your unique frequency. Really letting yourself now connect into those intentions that you have, those prayers perhaps, or wishes or desires or visions for this world relative to this conversation we've been having. And just letting yourself through your breath to really breathe life, to activate those intentions, those wishes, those prayers. With each breath, letting them get stronger, almost hearing the hum of the energy of it. Letting it get stronger and more potent. And then when it feels right, trusting yourself, trusting your body, when it feels right, allowing that energy to be released into the world, into the field, into the collective field. Allowing your prayers, your desires, your visions for healing on this planet to just burst forth. Seeking out and finding those places where it will be most effective and most received. Knowing that as we come together here, our shared and joined energy is amplified exponentially. And we can send that group intention and energy out as well, reverberating through the matrix, through the collective consciousness, knowing that it's helping lift some things and move some things. And we don't need to know what, we don't need to know how. All we know is that our hearts, our clean and clear desires and intentions are part of the healing of this. And just allowing that process to occur. You don't have to control it. Just know that it is so. It is done now. And I feel complete.
As you both were speaking, what was coming to my mind was images of the protesters in LA who were showing up for their neighbors, and how this work takes many forms. And it even takes the form of every being who is tied up in this deep, interconnected web of human life has their own journey, has their own team of guides, angels, spirits, ancestors, has their own higher self. They have their own tender, precious heart. And may we not, in our process, vilify those who have had a different life experience that has had them make choices that we would perceive as heartless. Honoring that within each of them is a small child that from their very influenced, easily malleable place in life was surrounded by particular circumstances that led them to make the choices that they've made, oftentimes operating based on a nervous system rooted in fear. And so, as we are tuning into our intentions here, being able to expand that to all beings everywhere, that we can see each other and see within each other that spark of light, that element of love that so often gets left out of the picture as we are focusing on the action. And may we open our hearts to that child within ourselves, so that as we are here to do our own healing, we may be tender with them as well, honoring of everything they've been through, and then begin to see more and more of ourselves in each other and each other in ourselves. And there's just this melody that's coming through to sing real quick. We'll wrap up here in just a moment, but to send us off with a little bit of sound, I invite you to take a deep breath in, taking what resonates and leaving what doesn't. Taking a deep breath in, releasing any last little bit of anything that's ready to go at this moment. Starting to come back into your space, into your body, maybe wiggling your toes, shaking your shoulder, wiggling your body a little, your neck. And as you're ready, let your eyes drift open and come back into the space. And I would invite everyone to just notice what you notice now, how your body feels. Notice what you felt throughout the call. If you felt anything move, if there's anything you're curious about, if there's anything you'd like us to discuss or unpack, we are open to all this feedback, and it's how we're going to shape what we deliver here. So we so appreciate you being here today and listening to the recording, and I'm just so grateful that the people are leaning in with us and having these conversations.
This is just the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you for being here.
Mm-hmm.